So what's one thing that engineers could be doing to think about getting their buildings to net zero carbon by 2050? I think for building services engineers, there are some really key areas that are introducing new requirements in the standard. One of those is thinking about metering strategies to make sure that all of the operational energy and the heating can be measured and separated. So that's probably, if I'm allowed to say two, I would say also thinking about the refrigerant. The standard sets a limit for the global warming potential of refrigerant. So engineers will need to think about specifying the right kind of systems to meet that limit. What sectors are leading the charge towards net zero carbon on the standard? I think through our pilot testing phase, we've had participation from all of the sectors represented on the standard. The one that was most strongly represented was the offices sector. And I think that particular commercial offices sector has the most work already done to establish what they need to do, and is I think one of the leading sectors. But that's not to say that the other sectors aren't leading the way in their own sector. So I think across the way that the standard was developed, we collected as much data as we could to set the limits and to develop our approach. So there are some sectors where there is not as much data available. An example of some sectors that have less data and that we're looking to collect more data on would be science and technology, data centers, and also it's categorized separately in the standard, but heritage buildings are an area where we're looking to collect more data, and that would support us to develop. The standard itself is already setting out the methodology, but to potentially consider more specific ways to apply that methodology within those sectors. For sectors where resources are challenging towards working towards net zero carbon, the first step, and we would say this, I suppose, in any case, the first step would be to just start looking at the requirements of the standard and understand what it would take to measure and report against those, and create a plan to how you would achieve them. There's a couple of routes within the standard that support this. So it's worth saying the standard applies to both new build and all existing buildings. And it's not the case that existing buildings necessarily need to go through major works in order to meet the standard. In a lot of cases, it will be possible to meet the standard with minor interventions and sort of optimization. So just starting off by looking at the limits and assessing what's the gap, I think would be a really good first step. The standard also offers the opportunity to create a retrofit plan rather than meeting the limits in one go, so that the improvements can be scheduled out over time based on what the building owner has available at that moment, or can plan out to put them on track to meet the standard over time. Sort of being idealistic, it would be fantastic for buildings to have something that motivates them to record, monitor, and disclose their building performance. I think that would do wonders for the industry to learn and upskill and understand how the buildings are performing and what the performance gap is. I think there's a lot of possibility space of what could be developed, but I think at the moment we need to see what happens next. But certainly, I think it would be fantastic if that could be possible.